I found something fairly interesting pertaining to the global elite and their use of symbols to convey an idea or a message to the public in terms of where they want to take us. The Lisbon Treaty came into full effect on December 1st, 2009, and the EU has appointed its first president, who recently announced that world government is here. This was just last week. The European Union ends the national sovereignty for most European nations, replacing currencies and constitutions with the EU currency and legal structure. Important decisions for the citizens of Europe will now be made by a small group of European elitists, many of them totally unelected, and there are some Nazi ties to the actual foundation of the European Union. Hitler also wanted his own European Union-style superstate. Now, recently I came across a variety of statues, including the EU coins, that are very interesting. This is the first one. Let's leave it there, Bill. Now, power elite, the world elite, the Illuminati, whatever term you want to use to define the power structure, they're well known for their use of symbols to identify themselves with mythological deities or gods. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at some of the symbols used on official European coins, posters, and artwork. Now, the open display of such artwork indicates that the elite have sent us a message telling us exactly what they are planning to do with all of humanity. This is the first one, and it's a statue right outside the EU headquarters in Brussels, Belgium. It is a statue of the pagan goddess Europa riding a bull. EU representatives openly acknowledge as much. This is not a conspiracy theory. According to Greek tradition, Europa, from which Europe takes its name, a beautiful Phoenician woman of high ranking drew the attention of Zeus, the great Greek sky god. Zeus became so fond and attracted to Europa that he transformed himself into the most beautiful white bull that anyone had ever seen. The bull laid down in front of Europa, and she slid upon its back. Instantly, the bull charged off, plunged into the sea, and raped her. Zeus then took Europa away to another location, to Crete, where he finally reveals his true identity, and Europa gave birth to his children, thus creating Europe. This is the myth of creation for the continent of Europe. Now, this isn't a biblical show, but it's interesting to see how they are using biblical references, especially particular deities in the Bible that are associated with Satan, to associate themselves with, in particular, what we're talking about here, Zeus. In the Bible, in Revelation chapter 2, the throne of Zeus is associated with Satan's rule. This is interesting. According to Wikipedia, the great altar of Pergamon, a massive stone podium about 100 feet long and 30 feet high, was originally built in the 2nd century BC in the ancient Greek city of Pergamon, modern-day Turkey. It has long been assumed that the magnificently scaled and decorated open-air altar was dedicated to Zeus. So by using this ancient legend as a symbol for the EU, the elitists are telling us that the plan of their master, Zeus, Satan, Lucifer, is to seduce Europe, Europa, and ultimately dominate and rape it. Now, we see the same legend promoted on coins. We're going to show you some of them now on posters and in artwork all throughout the EU. And these are some of the examples. This is a EU coin recently released in Greece that depicts a woman riding a beast. In 1996, a €5 coin was released that depicted Europa riding the bull. In the next slide, we have a stamp from 1984. Commemorating the second election of the European Parliament. In the next slide, we see a magazine featuring a picture of a woman riding a beast carrying the EU flag with the headline, "Good Morning Europe." Here is a German phone card, calling card, made by the EU. And here is Time magazine. Time magazine in the past published some artwork of a united Europe that featured Europe riding the beast. This photo below, right here that you're seeing, is a Europa statue in front of the Winston Churchill building. Not only that, but other EU symbols and messages that have a very deep meaning are also being used at this time. So what's interesting about this next slide that we're also seeing in Europe, well, this is basically the Tower of Babel. According to tradition, Nimrod was the first one who began the building of the Tower of Babel. He also built the very empire after Noah's flood, and he tried to establish the very first world government. With that in mind, check out the EU poster on the screen. This poster was the official poster promoting the EU Parliament before it was banned because of protests from numerous groups. Note how clearly it connects the EU with the Tower of Babel. By using this symbology, the EU elitists are basically saying that they want to complete what Nimrod started, the building of a one world government. This ties in directly with the symbology of the woman riding a beast. You see, not only does a woman riding a beast go back to the legends of Zeus and Europa, it also has a direct connection to the Bible, interestingly enough. And so they're choosing to use these symbols that are associated with certain things, these deities that are associated with certain things. According to Tom Horn, who's going to be with us shortly, this is from one of his previous articles, in Greek, the phrase where Satan's seat is literally, where Satan's seat is, in quote, literally means where a throne to Satan is. Scholars identify this throne or seat as the great altar of Zeus that existed in Pergamos at that time. So important was the worship of Zeus in ancient Pergamos that perpetual sacrifices were offered to him upon the towering and famous 40-foot high altar. According to the Bible, Jesus described Pergamon as the city where Satan has his throne. Many scholars believe that Jesus is symbolically referring to this throne like altar to Zeus as Satan's throne. Now, this is where it gets very interesting as we move into today. Approximately 2,000 years after Revelations 2:13 was written, German archaeologists, well, there's much debate in terms of when Revelations was actually written, but German archaeologists removed the massive altar of Zeus from the ruins of Pergamos and took it to Berlin, where Hitler spoke before it. Just a couple years after that, actually about 75, I think they took it in 1880 to Germany, and the 1940s came around, and Hitler was speaking before this particular throne. In 75 years later, after Hitler spoke in front of this altar, Obama spoke before the very same spot. This is where Obama called for America to play its part in the creation of a new world order. So when Obama spoke in Berlin, it was before this particular altar that was dedicated to Zeus. Now, when Obama came back to America in late August 2008, at the DNC, Obama spoke before his very own reenacted Greek temple laid out in the design of the throne of Zeus. Reuters merely described the set as similar to a Greek temple. They didn't get specific as to what type of temple it was. Said one Democrat, this is a disaster of mythical proportions. Said another, it's not enough that he wants to be president, he wants to be Zeus. Said another one, will he send down thunderbolts from the mountain to save us? So this temple was a full-on creation of the great altar of Pergamon. And so this is all very, very, very interesting. But it's not about Obama. It's not about Hitler. It's not about Bush. It's about the organized forces of darkness that have actually propped these puppets up over time. But don't worry, we're not going to forget about Boy Bush. Bush liked to stand in front of the altar of Zeus as well.